All right. Hey, welcome to the webinar, everybody. We're going to have a lot of people today. This is a Florida Bar webinar. This is for CLE Credit, which is very exciting. And we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things to talk about, which is the paperless law office, which I think is muy importante. So as the people walk through the door and settle into their chairs on our virtual webinar, I'm Larry Port. I'm with Rocket Matter, and I am going to share my screen. Here we go. Okay, here we are. You can share my screen now. You can see I'm putting in play mode. If you don't mind, let's make this interactive today. All right. I don't know about you, but I ate a lot for lunch. And so like, if I'm not careful, I'm going to go into like kind of a carb coma. So why don't you guys like, just tell me, I can see your screen. I can hear your voice. And that way I know that I'm not talking into thin air. You never know these days. Happens all the time. So if you don't mind, say I can use your chat widget. All right. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Thank you, Charles. Okay, wonderful. All right, we got people. Everything's cranking. Wait a couple more minutes while people are doing things. While I'm sitting here vamping and waiting for everybody to kind of like log into the webinar, why don't you tell me, is there anything specific that you'd like to know? I'm gonna go over a lot of different stuff. I'm gonna go over a 12-month plan on how we're gonna do this. What I'd like to know is like, does anybody like run into problems trying to do this and had to like bail on the whole paperless office effort? And like, what were the problems that you had? Because I would think that the number one reason would be personnel. But I'd be curious to hear what people have to say. So what I want to do is I want to find out what obstacles you guys have had and like try and remove those. Or if there's like, you know, little itty bitty things that you want to know, maybe some details that would make your experience better, that would be really helpful for me as well. So, all right, let's get started. Okay, I see something coming through a Q&A. How do you do a paperless will? All right, we're not going to cover the details about how to do a paperless will on this, is what somebody asked, but you can do it. You know, there are, you know, that might be a better session for something that's more focused on estate planning, but you can do paperless wills now. There's like the Electronic Wills Act and so on and so forth. So that's exciting stuff. Somebody wrote, sometimes it is difficult reading on the screen and not having the tangible item and being able to mark it up. Okay, we can talk about that. Someone else is saying, I am most interested in finding out what actually constitutes a paperless office. All right, well, that's a good place to start, right? Okay, I guess a little bit about me. I started this company called Rocket Matter. You may have heard of it 14 years ago or so. And it's been quite a ride. So I'm not an attorney, I'm a software professional. And I had been hearing from attorneys that they were having trouble automating their practices and using software in their practices. And this was back in 2006. And I looked around and there was like no web-based software at all. This was before the iPhone, but still web-based software, everybody was using, at that point, people were using, you know, online banking, Salesforce. The company was already like $1 billion company or something. My company that I was working for at the time was doing online payroll software. I had been doing online trading software when I was working on Wall Street. So it was a thing, and I couldn't believe that it wasn't illegal. So my story is that, you know, like everybody else, I got a life outside of software. I don't need to bore you with this kind of stuff. I have a family, I have animals. I like to be a good person if I can. This is my product. So this is the product that we built, Rocket Matter. It works on every device because it's internet-based, web-based. So that's cool. We actually have a promotion going on right now so that if you sign up, you get all sorts of good stuff. You get 25% off of a whole year, which I'm like, they want to do in the marketing department. I'm like, that sounds a little rich, but they went ahead and did it anyhow. Then they had a compelling case, so I agreed to it. Then free month or free data migration. So getting you off one system and moving to the other, which is not easy to do. And a free month of our payment processing product. So if you want to take advantage, now is the time. So I wrote this book for the American Bar Association, and it has a lot to do with why you want to go paperless. It's called The Lean Law Firm, Run Your Firm Like the World's Most Efficient and Profitable Businesses. I wrote it with a colleague of mine. He's actually an attorney that does consumer protection law in South Carolina. And the thing is that as a software engineer, I came equipped when I left my company to start my own business on what to do to be efficient and how to run a practice. And what I observe, and I've been, after 14 years, I've worked with tens of thousands of lawyers, literally, and seen how they run their firms. And most of them don't know how to run a practice efficiently. And because they weren't taught that, it was baked into me just because that's how software departments run. So I knew what to do for the most part. But law schools aren't teaching people this. We went ahead and put this book together based on stuff that we've been seeing in industry that could work for legal. So that's the Lean Law Firm. And then I have the Lean Law Firm podcast with Dave, and I have the 10-Minute Law Firm podcast. So there's a lot of information that's out there that's totally free for you to access. Now, in terms of why it's important it's not just making, it is making fewer errors, but it's providing better service, but it's not just about being more efficient. It's about making more money. There's a relationship in systems thinking between how much stuff you can get rid of in your processes and how much money you make. Like the fewer things you have to do, and the more throughput you have, and the more money your firm makes. It's a very simple relationship, and that's what we talk about in the Lean Law Firm. And so one of the things, there's this concept called waste in Lean, and it's called muda in Japanese because it comes from the Toyota production system. And the one thing we say in the book is that if you're not running a paperless law office, you're neck deep in muda. And I oftentimes do this presentation with a guy named Brian Sims, who speaks all over the country on these kind of notions. And he speaks at the American Bar Association. He says it's the single most important thing you can do for your law firm to make it most efficient. So in terms of what does it mean to go paperless? It's basically having all of your case information in one place electronically. Doesn't mean you don't scribble notes on a legal pad. That's fine. But you don't also necessarily have to hang on to those legal pads. If there's something critical that you took up, that you wrote down, you can take a picture of it and store it, So it doesn't mean completely paper free, but when people talk about paperless office, it means that primarily most of your work product is electronic, and it just gets rid of all sorts of problems. So if you weren't convinced already, and you waste less time. One thing you see in paper offices is people going to the file cabinet and getting a file. So that takes 15 minutes, or it's not in the file cabinet because somebody else is using it. Then they have to hunt around the office. The other thing is we all probably can appreciate from having endured COVID together is the remote access aspect of things. So it really doesn't matter where you are. If you have a paperless office, if you have your stuff online, you can be in any state of the union and access your stuff as long as you have internet access, which is ubiquitous now. When I used to talk about this 14 years ago, when I first started Rocket Matter, not everybody had internet access everywhere. Now they do, because even if there's no Wi-Fi, you can connect through your phone. Backing up and protecting client data and no more lost files, both of those CYA kind of aspects, some of the first people to move in this direction were attorneys from New Orleans after Katrina. So, they started doing this a long time ago. So there's ethics opinions dating back almost as long as Rocket Matter has been in existence about the ethics of storing online files. And then the stop paying to store paper files. Now, that's a real thing. You might think oh, that's kind of just a little side benefit. But if you have to devote a room to filing or significant floor space to filing, number one, you're probably going to need a long-term lease. So you're probably going to need a 3 to 5 year commercial lease. Nowadays, though, if you don't have to have filing cabinets, then you can sign up for one of these co-working spaces. You have complete flexibility. You can pay month to month. You can work from wherever you want. And you certainly don't have to pay for an extra room for files. So that's a real thing. Now, keeping track of the time. So I'm dividing this. This is about how to be paperless in 2022. So we're going to divide this into 12 months, and you're going to have a little project in each month. Now, Stephen, who asked what constitutes a paperless office, I said it's pretty much all of your major work product is what constitutes paperless. So, all of the documents that you're drafting, any incoming thing we want to convert to a scanned copy. So, and we're going to go over those processes, but it doesn't have to go down to your chicken scratch on your legal pad on a day-to-day basis. So let me know if that doesn't, or if that answers your question or provides a little bit of clarity. Jennifer wrote, sometimes it is difficult reading on the screen and not having the tangible item and being able to mark it up. That makes sense to me. Like, I totally get it. At the same time, though, what happens after you're done marking it up? Don't you have to go back into Word and mark it up? So there's, whether you use, like, some people like to mark things up using new tablets like the Remarkable Reader, or they use iPads or things like that. That's a very common usage for this type of work. I personally, sometimes I do like to still print stuff out if I have to like read through things very carefully and I underline things. In fact, when I read books, a lot of times I prefer reading a paper book. So there's a time and a place for paper. So the whole idea, though, is if multiple people have to access something, and if you potentially have to access something from a remote location, then using it paperless is going to help you out big time. Yeah, keep the questions coming. These are great. Now, for January, the first thing you got to do is we got to take this slow. So the first thing you need to do, and please don't rush this, is that you have to make a commitment to it. And then you have to kind of like say, I'm going to finally do this. I'm not going to let this thing like slip by me this time. And you're going to overcome resistant employees. So let's think about this. You're going to have two types of people in your office. This is a big deal because this is going to dictate whether you have success or abject failure. You're going to have the little Miss Stubborns, and then you're going to have your gymnast champions. I can't remember what this girl's name was. I think it was Mary Lou Henner. I don't remember. 1984 Olympics, I think. Anybody? Add it to the chat if you remember what her name is. Mary Lou Retton. Okay, thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that. That's right. So in any case, you're going to have these types in your office, and you probably already know who they are. There's going to be people who are going to help you, and there's going to be people who are going to get in your way. And they're going to do it for whatever reason they currently have. Everybody comes to the table with different things. So everybody's different. Everybody is different. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, they're not going to be this different, right? These are the Star Wars action figures circa the 1980s that I grew up with. But you got to think there are certain people in your office that they may be very hesitant to get off of paper because they might have been there for 15 years and they're just creatures of habit. So it might just be an innocent thing. It might be more nefarious than that. They might be knowledge hogs, as I like to call them, where they know how a certain process works and they feel job security because everybody has to come to them, right? So there's all sorts of people doing this for all sorts of different reasons why they'd be kind of like, and then you might have some people that are going to be your champions, and they just love technology and they get it. They understand how everybody's life is going to be easier. But keep in mind that if you're the owner of a law firm, that this is your money that they're screwing with if they're not going to go paperless. So my suggestion is that you do it this way. My suggestion is you come up with an incentive structure. And this is just an example. Right. So think about this. What if you made team monetary goals? Right. So imagine that, like, and I'm going to go through this. So some of this stuff is kind of a preview of what we're going to talk about. So don't make them individual goals, make them team goals so that there's a bit of peer pressure for everybody to achieve it. And then the bonus is released. And you don't do a huge, big bonus at the end of the process. So we're going to talk about naming conventions. Excuse me. Sometimes I knock out the microphone here. We're going to talk about naming conventions and processes and defining those processes. And you're going to need to get everybody's buy-in. And then maybe there's another bonus, and I'm just throwing out the number 750. I don't know what people can afford here, but I'm figuring it, maybe it's $1,000, but something chunky, something that would get their attention. $750 team bonus when the office converts to an online document storage system. So once the documents, and I'm not saying you have to go back through and scan your entire history of documents. I'm saying, like, starting at year 0, whenever you flip over to paperless, from that date forward, everything has to be in the document storage system. And then maybe a 750 team bonus when you start moving to paperless invoices and electronic payments. That's when you really start collecting a lot of money. When you move away from the paper invoice thing. Okay, so we have somebody who chooses to remain anonymous. It says anonymous attendee here. It says, in my office, assistants print their drafts. I physically make them up, mark them up, and they make the edits. They then send and print out the revised documents for me to review with my edits to make sure all my changes are made. Is there a better way? So, well, first of all, yeah, there's a better way. I mean, using track changes. If you're talking about like actual drafting documents, like legal documents, then yeah, that's what track changes are all about. And it keeps a history of them. So it keeps everybody really accountable, and you can revert back if somebody screws up. So it's just so much easier using track changes than this manual process of printing drafts and marking them up with like red ink. If you're using invoices and you're talking about pre-bills, we have a paperless pre-bill process where you can have like dialogue inside the application about the actual pre-bills, or draft bills, as some people like to call them, before those bills get out. So there's ways, yeah, you can completely get rid of both of those processes. All right. So January 1, you make a commitment, you try and get everybody rallied around it. You establish some goals, you establish some incentives. I think monetary team incentives are the way to go. Get that peer pressure running. Now in February, we're going to start outlining our process. You don't have to do this month by month, but I figured this is like a cutesy little way to divide this up. Okay. Step-by-step approach and not overwhelming. So you have a whole month to get people rallied around it. February, you're going to talk about process. Now you got to get this right. Before we talk about process, let's talk about what we're dealing with. Let's talk about internal documents. Internal documents and external documents are going to be different. They're going to have their own flows, right? So we might have pleadings, motions, briefs, letters, memos, or faxes. I saw on a website yesterday, actually morning, it said there was like a contact us like form, and it said, please send all faxes to 1994. Now I think you may not be able to get away with that in legal. So here we go. Somebody says that track changes is a horrible feature since it requires you to accept or reject changes. You are far better off creating red line document by using a compare feature. That's true. And there's other external, like there's other like kind of note-taking annotation documents that you might prefer to track changes. But I mean, I've written entire books. Like when I wrote the Lean Law Firm, I wrote that with track changes. And I've been through like multiple, yeah, that's what I thought. Like track changes does use redlining. And I've been, you know, I've had to actually read a lot of legal documents myself. You know, we sold Rocket Matter last year to this company. We're now part of this thing called Profit Solve, and I had to read through. I'm not a fan of these documents. I'm very impressed that you guys are able to read through these things. So like it took me forever. But in any case, you know, all these documents, we're using track changes. We're using the redlining in track changes. So so anytime I had to do that, anytime I needed a loan, anytime I needed like to look at a lease, I was always using track changes in the redlining inside of like Word. So, and we were able to get the job done pretty well. So I can't imagine why. I mean, there are products that are out there that do redlining in a different way, but I think track changes is plenty powerful. Now, in any case, internal documents, but I will let the debate continue to rage inside the chat widget. Internal document workflow, right? So in an internal document workflow, let's say that we're not going to use a printer anymore. Okay. We create a document in Word. We can affix our signature to it. Now, this is Brian Sims, who I talked about before, the illustrious paperless office lawyer out of Illinois. This is kind of how he envisions his internal document workflow. So you have this like Word document. You can affix a digital signature to it if you want to. Now, original signatures or original documents get filed away into a specific folder called O2 word processing documents. We're going to talk about why things are named this way in a second. From there, you convert the Word document to a PDF. On Windows machines, it's very easy to do this by printing to a PDF. You can install like PDF print drivers. In Macs as well, it's easy to convert things to PDFs. So if you don't know how to convert a Word document to a PDF, that's a quick Google search. So that's an easy one to find out how to do. And you'll be up and running doing that in 5 minutes. Once you have your original Word document, the one that you're going to share with people and pass around, you're going to file that in the right place. So in this case, it goes into discovery pleadings, right? From there, if you need to, if it needs to go out the door, if you can't share it electronically through like secure file sharing, you can either send it through the mail, send it to the courthouse, or whatever it is that you have to do. So that this is, but the example is that you have to define this for your own office for what makes sense, and you have to get everybody to agree on it. Like, don't start the paperless office journey until you guys all get like buy-in on this thing, because otherwise you're going to be stepping on each other's toes. You need to know the workflow. You need to know folder structures and so on and so forth. We'll talk about folder structures in a little bit. External documents have to be handled differently. So you have internal documents, you have external documents, income, pleadings, motions, briefs, letters, memos, faxes, documents from clients, documents from the courts, all these things. That's different. So you have a mailbox, okay? Your receptionist checks the mailbox. Pam, I couldn't remember her name. Her name's Pam from the office, checks the mailbox, gives it to the attorney. The attorney marks it as reviews, hands it back to Pam, the receptionist. She scans it and it becomes a PDF. The PDF then gets what's called OCR'd, and we'll talk about what that means. But basically, it means that you can read the PDF. You can actually search the characters in the PDF, and then it gets filed away. So there's a different flow for internal, and there's a different flow for external, and you really do need to define them both. We'll talk about all this kind of stuff. Now, there's some things that you may not want to destroy. I'm a big fan of destroying everything. And so is this guy named Ernie the attorney. He was one of those New Orleans lawyers I was talking to. His name is Ernest Svensson, and he's a big techie guy. And he is an attorney, and he gives a lot of talks about paperless. And he wishes that he had a device that was a simultaneous scanner and shredder. He wants to like have it like go through the scanner, then immediately through the shredder and done. Now that's different if you have certain documents like ancient documents. If you're the custodian of the Dead Sea Scrolls or something like that, or some sort of like ancient like deed, yeah, you need to not shred that thing. You know, forgeries, any kind of evidence, wills, depending on what state you're in. And to be honest, I don't know the ins and outs about wills, but I do know that there's like the Electronic Wills Act, so that at least in Florida, so that you can do wills electronically. So, you know, there are some things that you can't destroy, but as a general rule, you don't need to feel the obligation to keep paper copies around. Like a lot of times you're just going to be storing stuff that's never going to be seen again. So, okay, any questions so far on this stuff? No? Okay. So far, we've gotten people on board. We've rolled on an incentive plan. We've talked about our processes. We've defined flow. Third step, March. Establish naming and file conventions. So you have to define a folder structure that you're going to use every single time and how you're going to name everything. So for example, oops, wrong way. So for example, take a look at this folder structure. All right, let me switch to my annotation mode here. Love this little thing that you can do in Zoom. All right, check this out. All right, now I can draw. So the first thing is that I have research twice. So I'm going to kill this research. Boom, 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 boom. Pretend it's not there. Okay. Now we have the client and the matter up here, and then everything has a little 01, 02, 03. What this is doing, this is forcing alphabetization so that when you're sorting these files, it's going to sort the way you want them to. Okay. Here is the folder for your documents. The one, let's see, this one right here. This is where you keep all of your originals right here. 02 word processing documents. Going down, we've got correspondence, discovery, depositions, research orders, notes. The whole idea is that you want to have the same folder structure every single time. There should be no ambiguity. You don't want to have to go into a matter or a client and like have to be like, oh, where do I put this now? And where do originals go? And where do the finished work products go? So this is like very well thought out. And this makes a whole lot of sense. By the way, you're going to have these slides tomorrow, and as well as a recording of this. So if you want to refer back, you're going to have access to it. So this is an example of a file folder structure that you could use. All right. Now, file naming conventions. Are you going to put letter or letter? And when you name a file, are you going to put memorandum or memo? Are you going to put the dates in the files? Or if you are going to put the dates in the files, how are they going to be dated? So we have a whole, I have a link on this slide that when you get this, we have a whole blog post on file naming conventions that a lawyer wrote for us that goes into like serious detail. But I do want to pop out of the presentation for a second because I want to show you a third-party application. It's a tool called Text Expander. Does anybody have Text Expander in here? Is anybody using Text Expander? You can go to Text Expander, and I don't make any money from textexpander.com. Okay, and it's a product that you can buy. It's like $8 a month or $3 a month. It's super cheap, but I'm using it. So check this out. All right, so I'm gonna open a new note in. This is just like a blank kind of thing. So watch this. Watch what I can do. Okay. So I can type key codes, right? Like if I type in 5301, it's going to expand out to 5301 North Federal Highway. All right. Now this is pretty cool because like that's the address at my work. And this is a really handy one. If I type in TSAL, I travel a lot. That's my TSA pre-number. So I never have to look it up. I just type in TSAL and it like pops out this whole big thing, which is great. Now, when I'm naming a file, I keep a journal. So, and I keep an electronic journal. So I write like word entries and I save it, and each one has a certain specific name. So if I, in the save dialog box, I can hit JNL and it's going to spit out today's date plus entry. And I always do year first, followed by month, and day, because when I sort things, it's going to sort in the correct date order that way. If you start with the day or the date, it's not going to sort the correct way. So that's a nice way to like write dates. Now, the nice thing about using Text Expander across your office is that it's going to enforce file naming conventions. So let's open a Word document for a second. Okay. And let's save Word. Oh, we're going to verify Word first. We got to make sure that it's legit. Let's start a new file, blank document. And all right, this is my document. Yay. Now we're going to save it. Now I have a keystroke command in here that's going to enforce a certain file naming convention. So watch this. If I hit FLN and I hit enter, it actually pops up a dialog box. So it's going to start with the date, and I'm going to write sample memo for Florida bar, and I'm going to hit OK. And after a second, it takes a second for it to think about it. It's going to pop it in there, and I'm going to save it. And then my file, as you can see, is saved this way. So it's a great way to really kind of enforce things. So I would take a gander, if you will, at Text Expander. Now let's go back to this. Scanners. All right. So how do you go paperless without a scanner? There's a line of thinking about this, which is that because there's a lot of choices. So there's a line of thinking that, and I agree with this line of thinking, that like everybody should have their own scanner. That little one in the upper left-hand corner is something called the Fujitsu ScanSnap 1500. That's an older version of it, but you know, it's a desktop scanner. It's awesome. The one in the middle on the bottom is one of these multifunction devices. It prints, it scans, it faxes, it does all these things. You want to avoid those things. Like in my opinion, you want one tool that works really well. You're a lawyer. You are a document professional. So get the best of breed stuff. It's like with us. Like I tell my software engineers, it's like invest in the best possible computers. You're a software engineer. Invest in the best possible software tools. Like so, have those at your fingertips. And then these other ones, these big ones, you end up having, first of all, there you get some like operational resistance there because number one, there might be a line at the scanner if you have one of these big scanners. You also might there might be some resistance about just getting up and using the thing. So a lot of people believe, including some practice management advisors, people who are paid by bar associations to kind of help out the law firms in their jurisdiction operate better, that the desktop scanners are the best choice. This one, the Fujitsu ScanSnap scanner with ScanSnap Cloud. I don't know if we still support this. We used to have it so that you'd scan, it would scan directly into Rocket Matter, which is pretty hot. You know, but these scanners are great. Like I use them personally. I learned about it from attorneys, like from estate planning attorneys. They work with PCs, they work with Macs, they are fast. They de-skew, so if it pulls the paper in like a little bit crooked, it'll make it straight. It's duplex scanner, does both sides. It's awesome. And then you're going to need some sort of software to manipulate the PDF. So whether you use, you know, Adobe's not the only game in town, just so you know. There's Foxit, there's Kofax, there's this thing called Nitro. There's a lot of PDF software. The Mac actually comes with a free one that's pretty usable. I mean, you can annotate PDFs, you can sign them, you can do all these cool things. But if you need to do like some hardcore like bait stamping and a lot of the heavy duty like attorney features, you probably will need one of these more you know, powerful options. Adobe is probably the market leader. It is undoubtedly the market leader. They're the people that invented the PDF standard. So you can't go wrong with Adobe, and you can always find other, there's all sorts of like CLEs and videos online about how to use Adobe to do whatever it is that you want to do. So that's, you can't go wrong with that choice. OCR. I know this is a lot of information, but remember, you can review this again. Does anybody know what OCR stands for? I have it on the screen, so let's see who wins this thing. The stupid question of 2021. What does OCR stand for? We'll see who's the first person in. Also got to make sure that people are paying attention. It is the CLE. So, aha, Steven, thank you. Optical character recognition. It's on the screen. So, and what it does is it converts images to text. So, keep in mind, all right, have you ever noticed that when you scan a PDF that it's a lot bigger than when you create a PDF from Word? The reason is that when you scan a PDF, it creates images. When you create a PDF from Word, it just kind of embeds those words into the file. So if you have an image of something, a computer can't really read an image. They're getting to that point, but they really can't that well. So that's why there's this tool called OCR. So it just goes through and one by one, it like converts the letters, the images into like letters, which then allows you to search it. And it happens during the scanning process typically. It does add information to the file. So it does increase the size of the file when you do OCR. But if you hear people throwing around the term OCR, and if you're going to go paperless, you do need to know what that means. Then important. Okay. May automate your billing and collections. All right. One thing that's important to do is as you're going on this paperless journey, like we see people using paper billing all the time. And it's no exaggeration to say that we have reduced people's billing output and taken them from a 2-day process down to a 30-minute process. It's very quick. Paperless billing just saves you so much time, right? Somebody said to repeat the brand of the desktop scanner, the Fujitsu ScanSnap 1500. I think it's the 1500 model, but if it's something along those lines right now. In fact, if we go on to Amazon and we do a search for it, let's see, Fujitsu ScanSnap IX 1500. It might be the 1600 these days. Let's see what we see. This is your guy right here. Okay. And it's about $400. It's definitely worth every single penny. And it comes with some PDF software. So you have that too. You know, one thing is like in terms of scanners, you don't want to cheap out. Like I said before, you are a document professional. So this is what you should be investing money in. Okay. Billing and collections. I'm going to show you a flow that is like super fast, and you'll see why it reduces billing overhead so dramatically. Here we go. While we're in here. Okay. Let me log out of this one and show you something else. Okay. So this is Rocket Matter, and there's other software clearly that are able to generate electronic invoices for people. But I just wanted to show you how mine work, because I don't know how the other softwares work. I don't like to nose around in my competitor's business. So, right, let's do this. All right, let's say somebody asked the question. Your slide said clients can choose how to pay. Does that mean if they only want to pay one half, it will allow them? QuickBooks, when I send them a request for payment, will only let them pay the amount I set. Yeah, no, they can pay whatever they want. If they want to pay half, there's all sorts of different ways people can pay in the system. So let me kind of give you a sense of this. All right. Let's do a new matter. Okay, now what I like to do is I need people to shout out some colors. They could be your alma mater colors. So go to the chat widget and say a color or something like that, or say your dog's name. I don't care, but I need original. All right, green, red, we got. Okay, perfect. Brownie. Oh, brownie is a color and a dog's name. All right, so we're gonna call this green. Oh, first of all, let me be the client just to make life easier. Lawrence Port. And we're gonna do green versus poor little brownie. Matter open date is today. All right. And we're just going to do a flat fee. We're going to charge $5,500 for it because it's just easier. That way I don't have to add billable time. I can streamline this invoicing. Let's go into the billing information here, and I'm going to share the invoices, and I'm going to do it over email. We rolled out this portal feature because people are like, oh, I need a client portal. No one uses it. Clients don't want to use it. And then the attorneys don't like using it because they'll find what we find, which is like your number one support ticket is resetting somebody's password. So you're going to have all your clients calling to reset passwords. So we found that sharing invoices via email is like a lot easier. So I'm going to click add. And now I have this matter ready to go, ready to be invoiced. Okay. Oh, brownie, somebody pointed out, this is Joel, pointed out that not only is brownie a color and a dog's name, it's also a food. So that's very true. It's also technically a rank, isn't it? I don't know if it's a rank or it's a role. It's something that little girls can be. So let's do this. We're going to invoice the $5,500. Let's go, and I'm going to go through this process. So it's not a pre-bill, it's an invoice, and it's a PDF. And there's some trust money in there, but I want to bypass that for now. I'm not going to transfer trust account money. I'm just going to click process. And what it's going to do is it's going to generate the invoice. It's going to send it out. So, okay. So here's what's cool. Like once you start doing like electronic invoicing, you get to take advantage of all these things that you couldn't otherwise do, like, and that we're able to do. So now you see, like, we can resend the invoice with clicking a button. It's going to resend the invoice. You know what's involved in resending the invoice? Well, you know what's involved, but, and this is a one client. What if I wanted to do all my clients? We have like batch billing, and instead of just sending out one invoice, it sends out all the invoices at once, which is super hot. Now let's go into my inbox. And I have something called your current invoice for green versus brownie. See, that's why I like to get the names on this thing, because that way you know that like I haven't done it before. So there's a attachment, so I can take a look at the invoice here. This is an out of the box attachment, like in Rocket Matter and in pretty much other platforms too. You can customize this. You put you can put trust account information or whatever you want. And then there's a link. You can customize this invoice, but you can click on this link. Now, the cool part is, think about like over on the Rocket Matter side of things. Let's say that like, okay, it's been a while. It's been all of 24 seconds. I want to know if my client has looked at this invoice. So now you see that the little envelope has been opened. And if I hover over it, there's a little date that appears. So we can actually see that somebody has taken a look at this invoice. In fact, if I go into my reports, Let me hunt for it here. This is a report that we have that shows all of the, see, I've been doing all these demonstrations, but here's green versus brownie. Somebody looked at it on 11/18, but I can take a look at all the invoices that I've sent out and I can see who's seen them, right? And I can see the amount paid. So I can be like, oh, look at these guys. They haven't been paid. I should like take a look and see what's going on for those things. Now, here I am here. That's an old one. I already paid an invoice. This is green versus brownie. This is $5,500. Well, I don't really have the money for this. I don't have $5,500 lying around. I need a payment plan. So instead of just like filling out this credit card form, what I can do is, as the attorney, I'm like, all right, well, let me hook you up. I'll set you up with a payment plan. So I can go to here, Matter Payments, and imagine the amount of work that would go into this from a papered perspective. That's what I'm saying. Like once you go paperless, it's not just that you're replacing what you already had. You're actually taking it to the next step and you're taking advantage of the electronic nature of everything. So I'm going to set up a payment plan for this guy and I'm going to click next. And here it is. It's the $5,500 we talked about. All right, we're starting payment. We're starting it today. And my name's Sally Jones in this thing. Welcome, Sally. See that up there? So I'm going to click Sally Jones. I'm going to click plus and payment frequently. I'm going to do this on a monthly basis. Okay. And so I'm going to do charge client an initial amount up front. I'm going to do this one, just a specified amount every month. And I'm going to just charge this guy $500. So, and would I like to charge automatically? Yeah, because I don't want to have to do it myself. And I have a saved Visa card on file. So I can go to next step and I can say if I went into operating, which I do, or trust, and then I can click review plan and I have a payment plan ready to go. So it's like a lot better doing electronic payments. And if you think about like, if you're going to go and do this for everybody, like now you have the capability of doing this, dividing things into payment plan, keeping track of them, who has to do what. You don't have to do anything. It just happens automatically, as long as your fee agreement is copacetic with it. So you can kind of see the power there that you have. And then the logical thing there is that, you know, if I want to invoice everybody at once, right? This is our batch billing screen. It looked like there's like, you know, $8,000 worth of billables that are ready to go. I'm going to click get answer. I'm not doing any filtering up here. Oh, it looks like there's $12,000 ready to go. And then I can do generate invoices. And then all of these things are going to be invoiced. So they're all going to get emails. So imagine that gets rid of all the printing and folding and stuffing and stamping and addressing and sending and waiting for the responses. And then when you get the responses, you don't have to like, there's not a stack of checks that have to be deposited. They automatically go into your bank account and there's no human error. People, you know, the payments just go directly into the accounts. So it's, life is a lot easier this way and more profitable. Now, let's see, June, and we have about 20 minutes left. I'll try and get us out of here early. Choose a document management system and document management system. I have to change the slide. So DMS systems do more than just like store documents. You know, usually they can have like metadata associated with the documents and you can track versions of them. Now, I don't know if people are using like Dropbox or OneDrive, or maybe you're using the built-in document storage that we have inside of Rocket Matter. But these things are nice. I mean, cloud-based storage allows you to have like instant backups of like all of your files. So it's a very good thing to do. And if you just have your files saved on like a local server that's running in your office, that's like next to the printer or the coffee machine, you probably want to start thinking about moving it into the cloud, because that's a pretty, even if you're doing backups, that's a pretty dicey way to be doing things. You know, it's much better to just have a lightweight kind of like system, like a laptop that's connected with a cloud document management system. But you're going to want to take some time making sure that you choose the right one that you like, what works best for you. It might be OneDrive. It might be Google Drive. It might be Dropbox. It might be Box. It could be any of those. Automate simple documents with document assembly. So this is kind of like pretty nice thing to do. The way that document assembly works, if you're not doing this, especially if you're estate planning, or things of this nature. But the whole notion of document assembly is that you're storing data anyhow about your client. So you might as well use that data to kind of stuff into a Word document that has templates. So in this example, we have a case number stored in a database, PA432. In this database in particular is my product, is Rock Matter. The county is Blair County. The name of the court is First Court of Chuck Norris. And the court address is that 53011. And then what you do is you have a document that has these like placeholders in them. And you have these fields get merged directly into that. So it says in the First Court of Chuck Norris, case number PA432, county of Blair County. So you see it's all coming in there. So it all ties together. And the nice thing about that is that it really can tie to, if we go back over here to Rocket Matter for a second, let me log out of this one and show you a different Rocket Matter account that's set up for something. So I can demonstrate this for you to see what it looks like, because it sounds a little abstract. All right. So I have this one here that you can see, and let me make the screen a little bit bigger. We got Marge Simpson, power of attorney, right? And, you know, she has a client home address, Springfield, Florida. Ned Flanders is her agent. Okay. So all this information, you know, is stored in the database. And wouldn't it be nice if we could like stuff that into a document? So if we do from here, I'm going to do add new merge document, and I'm going to choose this durable power of attorney form. And then if you can see on the screen, it says I, Marge Simpson of 123 Sesame Street, appoint Ned Flanders. So what it did was it found all these merge fields, as you can see over here, and stuffed them into the document. So then I can click next. So when you're going and you're creating these documents on the fly, it doesn't take a lot of time. The trick is setting them up in the first place. So setting up document templates in the first place is where your time and investment is going to be. So let's just do Marge Simpson, power of attorney. And it looks like I've already done this one. So let me call it 2, Marge 2, and then publish. And I can put billable time if I want to. And now I have this document that's like ready to be downloaded or do whatever I want with, right? So there you go. So document assembly, if you set it up right, it makes it real fast to generate things. Any questions about that? Okay. All right, now you've done most things at this point. Like if you've gotten this far, you're ahead of most people. Okay, August is pretty much of a down month. At least that's what we notice here at Rocket Matter. It seems like most people are on vacation. So July and August are our worst month for sales. So what we would say is like use that time to maybe scan some of your older documents that you never got around to the first time. So use your downtime, you know, for that project. That's kind of the point of that whole thing, is that as you're going through this process, there's no need to do your entire archive. No need to do your entire archive at front, but you might want to start doing more and more of it as time goes on. At first, you're probably going to want to go forward with only your active cases, but unless you want to get rid of your storage, you know, you don't really have to go through the old stuff. You could also pay a company to do it for you. Okay, September, adopt an e-signature tool. Now, it's kind of getting late in the hour, but there's some pretty powerful like e-signature stuff out there. There's AssureSign, you know, there's all these different things. And it's totally cool to use e-signature if you're not using e-signature. So, I mean, the Uniform Electronic Transaction Act is like, you know, jurisdiction everywhere. And the way that electronic signatures work is that like, if you go back to what was, and this is old, this is like from 2000. I mean, 2000 being old, that's kind of weird, but yeah, 21 years old at this point. The term electronic signature means an electronic sound, symbol, or process attached to or logically associated with a contract or other record and executed or adopted by a person with the intent to sign the record. So that's why you're seeing like it can be these, like you pick a typeface, and that's why it's okay for that to happen, because that's what the law says. I mean, the law also says that you could use the print symbol basically for all intents and purposes, because you could sign with a symbol. You could also sign with audio, and people love them. I have this picture of people dancing, and it, aside from like going paperless in general, e-signature has got to be the e-signature, and the whole paperless collections and invoice creation. Man, if you can nail those things, you're really saving a lot of time. And odds are you already are doing e-signature stuff. Somebody did ask about wills and how to do a will. I'm not an attorney. I can't tell you how to do a wills, but in Florida, since this is a Florida Bar webinar, last year, actually before COVID, if you look at the date of that article, January 3rd, 2020, electronic wills and remote notarization law took effect at that time. And the remote notary thing is kind of interesting because the way that those services work, and I haven't really found one. If anybody's used one that they like, I'd like to hear about them. But the way that those things work is that like you're on the Zoom thing or whatever with the notary, and you kind of do the signing together, like over video and in person. So it's kind of interesting. And then the Uniform Electronic Wills Act, that was in 2019. So for those of you that are looking to do electronic wills and stuff, there's a lot of information in there. You do have to add some language into the will, like this one, about like, this is an electronic will. There has to be some acknowledgement of the fact, like I willingly sign it and so on and so forth and whatever. So there is some information in here about estate planning documents, but I would do a little bit more research just so you know it is possible to do it. If I have time, I want to show you an electronic signature thing that integrates with Outlook that we use called Imagine Share. That's part of our Premier tier, which is actually pretty cool. For now, though, I want to talk about a little bit about this. Like, take advantage of your phone if you're doing paperless things. I mean, I use an app called Genius Scan. It's not even on this slide, but it's just one that I happen to like. You know, there's something called iAnnotate, which allows you to mark up your PDFs. And there are a lot of apps that like use the camera function on your phone, and you take a picture of something against like a contrasty background, and it generates like a scanned PDF document for you. I use it a lot. I probably use it like, and I'm not a lawyer, so I use it like probably once a month. What did somebody say? OneDrive will do that, so will Dropbox. Yeah, it's such common. And Stephen, when you're saying OneDrive will do that and so will Dropbox, you're referring not to e-signature, you're referring to what I just talked about, which is converting like an image from your phone into a scan or a document. I'm guessing that's what you mean. So conversion into a PDF. Yeah, so according to Stephen, who's on the webinar, is that OneDrive and Dropbox will allow you to convert into a PDF directly from your phone camera, which is pretty hot feature. November. Without going too far into it, because it is late in the journey, this is about secure file sharing and avoiding portals. I talked about portals before, how they're kind of a pain in the butt. So what I can show you is like, you know, linking from emails. Like we have this thing inside of like Rocket Matter called Imagine Share. It's actually part of the Premier tier. If you're a Rocket Matter customer and you're not on Premier, you have access to it if you're on the Premier tier. It's about $30 more than our regular tier. But there's a whole bunch of features in there, but this is one of them. So it allows you to within Outlook, do a secure file attachment, right? The other thing that it allows you to do is do e-signatures as well. And then you get this like, you know, the recipient gets a secure link and they can click on it and they can download this, and the link can expire, and you have like all these kind of security things too. And they get secured with things that the client's going to know. So you know, it doesn't have to be a complex password or anything like that. It's just, it makes it very easy to securely share files with everybody. I use it all the time. I have a comp account, of course, because we work with these guys, but I love it because even when I was working with attorneys on like some of my stuff, whether it was my wills or, anything related to Rocket Matter, I'm like shocked at the documents that they send back and forth. Like, um, with all this sensitive information in it. And if you got to think, if you're emailing something, you don't have to just assume that it's public knowledge, because it bounces around all these intermediate like email servers, and they store copies of it. You may as well assume if you're sending something over email that anybody can see it. It's clear text, it's unencrypted. And for all the hoops that we jump through at Rocket Matter to make sure that nobody sees your client confidential information, why would you're only as secure as your weakest link. And if you're sending unsecured emails, that's a problem. So I love this tool, Imagine Share, because it allows you right from Outlook to be able to like share something securely. It's pretty hot. Okay, we've reached December. Congratulations. Reflect on your success. Okay, you don't need to be 100% paperless. That's one thing that we talked about. But if you do these things, you're going to collect a lot more money, because not only are you going to be more efficient, if you move to an invoicing process that's electronic, and you do payment plans, there's going to be less excuse for people not to pay you, right? So that's the obvious stuff. But the more streamlined you are, the more throughput you're going to have. You're going to have more cases finish in a given year, and you're just going to make more money. So I can't say enough things about going paperless. I think it's beating a dead horse at this point. But if you can take care of some of these things, you move to e-signature, you move to secure file sharing, you move to electronic invoices and collections, and you store your documents online, maybe even dabble a little bit in document assembly, your law firm is going to be so much more efficient than it was before, and you'll finally have cleared the hurdle. But don't forget about the human factor and all the people in the office that can trip you up along the way. You guys were great. You asked questions along the way, kept it entertaining, kept it spicy. We learned about Brownie. And again, we have a promotion now. If you do want to go paperless, we can help in a lot of the aspects of it. We're a practice management application, so we have a promotion for a whole year. We're doing data migration for free and a month of free payment processing. And here is your course number. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. So the course number is 5679. And feel free to take a look at the screen. It's 5679. It's 1 hour of general credit, and you get an hour of tech credit. So congratulations to everybody. You get an hour of general credit and 1 hour of tech credit. Again, the course number is 5679. If you want to reach me, I'm not scary. I'm Larry@rocketmatter.com. I'm always happy to answer questions. Love hearing from people, love hearing what the kind of challenges that you're facing are, and if there's ways to solve those. And if you have like any kind of interesting tidbits, or you have a piece of technology or even a book you read that was interesting, definitely drop me a line. Would love to hear from you. So thank you very much. Congratulations on your 1 hour of general and technology credits, and I hope to see you at future Rocket Matter things.